Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, along with Tim Fitzgerald. Welcome back to the Big 12 Insiders. Got a good show for you guys today, man. We are talking college football playoff, SEC, Big Ten, basically trying to implement their plan, Fitz, to take this thing over. Just exerting power that they actually do have and just putting forth that effort. I mean, they're really trying to put their foot down on this, and it seems like they're actually going to get away with it, unfortunately, and it stinks. But we're going to break all that down for you guys today. Before we do, again, just covering the basketball games last night. Kansas State loses a tough one at Utah. Fitz, they can't lose another game. Look, there's been, I think it's like 11 teams with 14 losses that have made the tournament. The problem is they don't have the easiest schedule going down the stretch. And if they lose another game and they don't win the tournament, there's no way Kansas State is making it. I think that kind of ended things unless they win the Big 12 tournament.
I think they can still get there by winning out.
Right.
And then maybe winning a game in Kansas City. That would get them on the bubble.
Correct.
But may not get them in, though.
Right.
There's a lot of damage to themselves. It wasn't just a loss. And I don't mean this to be, condescending to Utah. It's not a good loss. It's a road loss, but it's not like losing at Iowa State or Arizona. Nope. And so I think that's a kind of a double whammy. Bottom line is Kansas State has reverted to not playing as well. And Utah, despite the score being fairly close, Utah kicked their ass last night.
They physically whipped them. What they out-rebounded by 20 plus? I mean, that's unheard of in a competitive college basketball game. I mean, one thing if the game was a blowout, but this was a competitive game and they destroyed them. It was unreal, but they get the win. And it's going to be tough for K-State. It really is. Yep. Arizona goes to Baylor and guts out a win. I don't think Arizona played as well as they possibly can, but they were able to go and win a game, which is the sign of a good team. Right. When you're not actually playing your best, but you're able to go. Now, then again, Baylor's good. Or Baylor's inconsistent, and they don't play a lot of guys, but Baylor's they're talented. Let's say that. They're talented, and they're well coached. They're just not very deep. But that was a really good basketball game, too. And Arizona needed the win to get back on track. They had lost a couple in a row. And you talk to any Arizona fan, they'll tell you they let the game get away from them against Houston. I kind of saw it the other way. I saw Houston making the plays down the stretch to win that game. Either way, Arizona gets back on track. That's a good road win in Waco on a Monday night coming off of a Saturday loss, Fitz.
Yep. Yeah, Arizona. They're just going through a rough patch now. Maybe they're getting back on their feet, but that's an elite basketball team, really.
Yes, elite basketball team, elite coaching. That was a really good basketball game. Both should make the tournament. I mean, Baylor's lost some games, but you look at their schedule, Lord have mercy. I mean, they played basically everybody. So, so they should be battle-tested when it comes tournament time. But let's switch our focus here. But before we do, remember to like, follow, subscribe, always get in that comment section and continue to hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content comes out. So report here by Ross Dellinger, who does a great job.
Yeah.
By the way, there's some reporters that are out there just clickbaiting stuff, yada, yada, yada. Ross doesn't really do that. And he's got a report that basically says the SEC and the Big Ten are building momentum to further expand the college football playoff to 14 and 16 teams. Now, I guess, Fitz, we all kind of thought they're not going to stop at 12. Personally, I thought 12 was a stupid number. I mean, I have no idea why it was 12 to begin with. I thought if you're going to do it, just go to 16 and let it go. Okay, but whatever. So we're going to end up getting there. But the SEC and the Big Ten have said they're basically putting it in motion that they are going to guarantee 4 slots for each league. Like 4 teams, no matter what, they're getting in, which, in my opinion, would be a disaster, an absolute disaster if that were allowed to happen. But it seems like it might be, Fitz. ESPN is in charge. You know what ESPN, I mean, they're going to basically it's ESPN and the Big Ten and the SEC are running the college football playoff. And if that's going to be the case, then they're going to get to decide the rules. And if that's what they want to do, they're going to do that. And again, it'll be total disrespect. And as it got proven this year, who you think is the best conference and deserves all these teams actually doesn't. What if it's another thing like this year where all these SEC teams have 3, 4 losses? Were you just going to throw them in there anyway? No. But kind of give me what your thoughts on this are, Fitz.
Well, first, it's obscene.
Yeah.
It's obscene to say, you know what, we're so good that we should forever get that standing. We don't have to prove it anymore. We've proven it for the ages. That's basically what SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey is saying. But at the end of the day, this isn't really about reserving spots. It's about making sure you get your cut of the money.
Correct.
Because if you've got 4 schools in, you're guaranteed 4 school money. And while it would seem logical to go to 16, so there's no buys, we get full rounds of football, that will further divide up the pie.
Yep.
Right. And if you're at 14, the Big Ten and SEC can say, well, our champions will get to buy. And that's more than just not playing a game. That is, you immediately advance to second round money.
Correct.
So they're literally trying to cook the books. They're in a moment of time where they're on top of the mountain. We saw that slippage last year. We're seeing some basketball programs that have been great start to slip because of the transfer portal. I think we're seeing it a little bit on the football side where maybe the SEC isn't as dominant as it was because more schools are getting some talent. But Greg Sankey wants to stop the count. This is the way it's going to be forever, right here. We're never changing. We're cooking the books. We're setting the future. You guys are screwed. We don't care about college football. Us, money, 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 money. That's my summary of the whole situation.
Yeah. Now, here's another interesting tidbit about all this, Fitz, is, for forever, SEC's played 8 conference games.
Yep.
And, well, it doesn't make sense. Our league is so good. We don't need to play 9 conference games, yada, yada, yada. And they could always lean on the ACC only plays 8 conference games too. But the Big Ten plays 9. Well, now, as part of this new alignment that's going to go on, not only is the SEC going to say, you know what, we'll go ahead and go to the 9 conference games, because I think the Big Ten demanded that. The Big Ten said, no, if we're going to make this alliance, you're going to have to go to 9 conference games. But then the SEC turns around and says, okay, great. Let's get together and play non-conference games, and we won't play these other teams. And if we're playing against each other, we won't have to count it. When somebody loses, it won't be as bad as if we play somebody from the ACC or the Big 12 and get beat. We're just losing to a Big 10 or an SEC team, so it's not that big. People that don't think that fits, I think, are way out of touch if they don't come to that reality that that's literally what they are doing and what they are saying.
How do you prove that your conference is competitive? Let's say the SEC, and beyond the top. Let's give them that, because it's obvious. They're the top teams in the SEC and the Big Ten are the best teams in football as of right now. And it might stay that way because the payouts are getting so out of whack. But that the argument I think the SEC is promoting is, we're going to guarantee us 4 spots and you get 1 guaranteed because our 5th team is comparable to your 2nd team.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Does that make sense? That's what they're trying to allege. Correct. They're trying to say. The only way to disprove that is on the field. But if you're playing all your non-conference games against the conference that you're in cahoots with, you never give them the opportunity to prove they're better.
Correct.
Again, we're going to freeze it in time. We're going to stop the count. We're going to be good forever. We're going to be the best forever because nobody else will be allowed by rule to challenge us. We get the money. We get the big games. We'll get the time slots. All of us, money, 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 money. That's Greg Sankey. It's just all he's after right now. And he doesn't care at all if he destroys college football for half of America, as long as his corner of America survives and thrives. He doesn't understand that if you poison the lake, eventually your little corner of the lake will get poisoned too, because he is going to destroy college football in the process of doing this. Congratulations.
And not only that, they're also meeting. They're meeting again. What did it say in New Orleans, I believe, for the second time, that they're just the SEC and the Big Ten athletic directors are all going to meet. And so they're in cahoots on this thing. This isn't like make-believe fodder or clickbait anything. This is real life. So the pushback has always been, well, why doesn't the other schools, you know what, just don't play them, move on if they want to do that? I agree, but that only works if you include all sports. You can't just do it if it's just football. For instance, Rick Pitino came up with the idea that the Big East and the ACC need to get into the same conference. They need to, get a super conference together, which I get what Pitino's saying, but the problem with that is it doesn't help. Football, look, is the king, and the Big East doesn't help anybody in football. So they don't have any teams. So what are you going to do? It's not going to work out. I think they have one team, UConn, that plays football. So it's not going to actually work out. So you can't do it if it's only if you don't do it for all sports. If you only did it for basketball per se, or only for football, you can't make this thing work, because trust me, while the SEC is having a great year this year, it's incredible in basketball. I don't think I've ever seen it this good, especially what they did in the non-conference, but we'll see about the tournament. And the Big Ten, good conferences both, they have to have the other leagues to have an NCAA. They wouldn't be able to just shut everybody else out and say, you know what, we'll just have this tournament between us two. Nobody would watch.
No.
Nobody would watch. So if you did it with everything, because I know that's kind of been what your thing is, has been before, Fitz, saying, hey, just shut them out. Well, I think you got to shut them out of everything.
Everything.
It can't just be for football. Shut them out of everything and then see where the chips lie.
That's exactly it. The rest of the conferences, and this would include the Sun Belt and the new Pac, whatever, Conference USA, everyone American, they all need to get together with the Big 12 and ACC and say, hey, we're going to do our own thing. You want to break off and do this, we're going to try to reform the NCAA, and you're out. If you want to do this, it's great, but you're out. Now the trip to Omaha won't include the SEC, which will suck. It'd be bad for the product. Now the NCAA tournament won't include your teams. Have fun playing each other over and over and over and over. Your fans will get bored with that.
Yep.
This isn't the NFL, guys. This isn't like professional sports, and quit acting like it. So I think that's the only play the other conferences have. Okay, you're going to leave and form your own thing? Okay. Form it in everything.
Correct.
Everything.
Correct.
March Madness stays with us. All of it stays with us. Maybe the plan wouldn't work. Maybe the baseball, basketball, all the other sports would be so weakened by their departure, it would just fold the entire sports product. But again, Greg Sankey doesn't care as long as his schools get paid.
Right.
And they forever will not be challenged for superiority, because they literally have fixed the elections for rest of eternity. This kind of thinking is so far from my head. I don't know how a human being gets to it. It gets to be so self-centered and focused on one thing that you're willing to destroy everything around you to get what you want. But that's exactly what Greg Sankey's doing.
No, he definitely is. But see, I go the other way with it. I agree with you totally, and I think it would work. And here's the reason why. There isn't enough baseball fans out there that is going to move the needle or make a dent in anything. Yeah, the College World Series would suck not having, SEC teams in it. I get it, but that doesn't move the needle. Okay. What moves the needle is college basketball and college football. And college football clearly is first. College basketball is second. That moves the needle. Let's just say that they did go their separate ways and everybody else said, okay, you're out. People, you're just like you said, they'd get tired of Ohio State constantly playing the same teams over and over again and playing nobody else. Okay, great. But in basketball, here's the thing, and I don't think enough people are taking hold of this. The SEC doesn't have real basketball fans. Outside of Kentucky, they're not real basketball fans. For instance, let Alabama and Auburn have a couple of seasons where they go 19-14. How many people do you think are going to show up there or care? See, in Kentucky, they'll still care. But at those schools, they're winning right now. Let it change. In one season, let it change. They will lose interest in a heartbeat, and everybody knows that. I go, so let's not act so superior and think that no matter that while they're having a good run right now, and they are, you can't deny it, but let it slip just slightly. Again, SEC fans, they don't have real basketball fans. So it would change because they would just whittle off where the Big Ten does. The Big Ten has real basketball fans, and they're not going to stand for that because they're going to say, well, hold on a second. Wait a minute. We got to rethink this. It's kind of what I've mentioned before, where the Big Ten will go along with this as long as they're getting their piece of the pie. Like I said, they're talking about the SEC going to 9 games. We're not joining forces if it's not going to be equal. The Big Ten has the power to be able to make them do that. That's why otherwise the SEC wouldn't do it. There's no reason for them to do it. But the Big Ten has real basketball fans at a lot of universities, and they're not going to want to say, okay, you're leaving us out of the tournament. Hold on a second now. This makes real money for us. And for you to just say, well, it's all about football. It isn't all about football at a place like Indiana or a place like Purdue or a place like Michigan State. It isn't all about football at those universities, So I would there's going to have to be some pause and some caution. And I've said this before, Fitz, the Big Ten is elitist. They are, but they're also realist a lot of times. And they understand, yes, we will go along and we will prop ourselves up, but we're not going to be so arrogant and ignorant that we're just going to bypass and say, we don't need this. It's all about football, where football makes the money, but it's not all about football in the Big Ten. It just isn't. And people that try to say that it is, you're lying. Yes, they make the most money. No doubt. You can't deny that if you have a brain in your head. It makes the most money. But it isn't all about that, because Big Ten has plenty of universities that make a lot of money in basketball. Plenty of them. And they're not going to want to just say, it can go away. We're just going to put it on the back burner. No, they're not. No, they won't.
I agree. Really the only hope for the rest of college football is the Big Ten comes to their senses and says, this might be too much. They're going to take their 4. Sure. But that's not as dramatic if it's 16 because there's no buys. Let's be honest. When you're at 16 schools, the SEC is going to get 4. Mm-hmm. They just are. It's the best college football conference. There's no denying that. But I do think they overestimate the depth quite a bit, and how quickly once you get below the upper crust, how quickly the conference is like everyone else. So I think it's a little tiresome to say, hey, we're going to get 4 because we're the best. Well, yeah, you've got the best, maybe 2 teams out of, right. Each of you got the top 4, but 2 and 2. So how's that mean the next 2 are deserving? Doesn't make sense to me, but if they can go to 16, we got no buys. Everyone's playing on campus. Everyone gets the first round money. They're most of the time they're going to get 4 schools in. You got to fill the slots. That's only half the field at 16. Hell, most years they're going to get 5, just because it's going to get a lot of watered down teams are going to be in there. If you're going to go to 16, which I think you need to, because you need to get rid of those damn buys. Yeah, go for it. But I think they're going to probably keep the buys to keep the payout, to lessen the watering down of the money. And, maybe that their teams will have problems with the buy, just like teams did this year. And if so, then they'll be back at the table trying to figure out a solution where they can, save it for them. They don't care about anyone else. What can we do to make it better for us?
Right. Well, and also, I mean, if you looked at it, it was just like this year, teams that got like Tennessee. Tennessee was just a foregone conclusion that they're one of the best teams in the country, where people that watch Tennessee and watch college football were like, well, hold on a second now. Now, I'm not saying that Tennessee didn't necessarily deserve to be in, but people acted, or people that watch the SEC, they just acted like Tennessee. Oh man, they got to be in. I'm like, is that the same team that I saw get beat by Arkansas, who was terrible? I'm like, but okay, fine. And then they go up north out of their element and they get throttled. Now you could say, well, it was Ohio State. Well, okay, great. Ohio State wasn't unbeatable. We saw them lose 2 games this year. So they weren't unbeatable. So it just goes to show you that the upper echelon that they try to put everybody at. I thought this was one of the years, Fitz, that there wasn't a dominant football team. No. There just wasn't this team that you looked at and said, oh my gosh, nobody can beat them. Like this Ohio State championship team, would they even be in the top 25 of the greatest college football champions ever? They're not even going to be anywhere near that. And doesn't mean they don't have a lot of talent, but they were beatable. And most teams that you talk about, like we've seen some SEC teams and some Big Ten teams, Big 12, ACC team. We've seen teams like that. They're like, yeah, you can't beat those guys. They're just way too good. Too much talent, too much NFL talent, too well coached. You're just not beating them. That wasn't the case in college football this year. And I think that's the part that bothers SEC fans, SEC commissioner, ESPN, is that you couldn't just point to an SEC team and say, yep, you can't beat them. No, that wasn't the case. Hey, Georgia, you can't beat them. Well, we watched them get beat. Alabama can't beat them. Well, we watched them get beat. You couldn't do that. And when you can't do that and it was left up to chance, they had to come back down to the table. And when you did that, it's like, hey, man, your resume doesn't stack up here. You can't be part of this. So now they want to cook the books to say, okay, well, we got to be part of this. Just like you said, though, Fitz, hell, they're going to get, if it goes to 16 teams, why wouldn't 4 SEC teams qualify? Of course they would, but just make them earn it. Right. Don't just guarantee them the spots. Make them earn it. The same thing in the Big Ten. Like Big Ten got 3 teams in. Or did they?
4.
Oh, they got 4 teams in. So who was the 5th team? Like, were they going to put somebody else in? Like, there wasn't anybody, but they got 4 teams into the dance. Okay. Let's just say Indiana would have lost another game. Say they actually played somebody worth a damn in the regular season and they lost another game. Were they going to be the 4th other team in there? No. They would have had 3 teams in this thing. So it's all relative. I get it. And maybe I'm grandstanding a bit. But I don't care. I think it's just being honest. I want everybody to have an equal share in this thing. Earn it. Don't just tell me somebody's better because you said they were better. Watch football, understand football, see it. Hey, they're really good. Or you know what? Everybody's pretty equal. Let's figure this thing out. But don't be guaranteeing spots, and cooking the books for you to get. Now, if you can do it, more power to you. I mean, if that's what it's going to be. But if people will get turned off by that. Look at the NBA. People get turned off by the NBA because all they do is shoot a bunch of threes. Nobody plays any defense. People are tired of that. People will get tired of this too.
Yep.
It's literally people. They want to see competition. And when you cook the books and try to take the competition out of it, people get worn out by that.
Let me back you up, because there's a great point in here to understand what they're doing. You said Arkansas wasn't very good and they beat Tennessee. How do we know Arkansas wasn't very good?
I watched them play.
Right. You watched them play, but they lost to Oklahoma State.
Exactly. And Oklahoma State was not good. Couldn't win a game in the Big 12.
They got measured against the Big 12 and didn't measure up. Well, we can't do that anymore.
No.
Replace that Oklahoma State game with Nebraska.
Correct.
Oh, you lost to Nebraska. Ooh, you're good. No matter what they can do in that scenario, yeah, we lost, but it was to a Big Ten team. It was to an SEC team. It's never a bad loss, Big B.
Correct.
They forever can claim, yeah, we're 7-5, but those 5 teams we lost to were really good. And they were all in the Big Ten and SEC, so they are good. We all know that, but we don't.
Right.
This is the game they're playing. They never want a team disqualified because they lost a game that they believe they should have won, ignoring the fact that actually their conferences aren't as elite as they want, because the non-conference schedules show that.
Yep.
The SEC doesn't totally dominate non-conference games with the ACC and Big 12. You particularly if you lop off the top teams, like we mentioned, it's probably in the favor of those other 2 conferences. So, again, we've said it over and over. Let's just stop the count. We're at where we want to be, and let's forever fix this so that we're number 1. And also, not only can you not prove it on the field, we're going to take all the money, so you're not going to have the resources to ever compete. We're really trying to destroy you in totality.
And that's literally what it is. They're trying to destroy the other conferences and compete on their own level and make their own league. Hell, what's his name? Lane Kiffin pretty much said so. It's the NFL and the SEC and a few teams in the Big Ten, and then everybody else down here. I mean, he's telling you exactly what he thinks, but yet he goes out and every year they're supposed to be good and somehow chokes it off and can't. But that's a different conversation for a different day. I apologize. But I don't know. That's kind of where it is, Fitz. SEC's doing their thing. ESPN's allowing it. Big Ten seems like they're going along for the ride. I don't know how long they'll stay on that ride. They will as long as the money's rolling in, but as soon as people start jumping off ship, the Big Ten will be off that bandwagon pretty quickly. They understand it. So I appreciate everybody, man. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Remember, Thursday night, we're going to be live doing it again. So had fun last time. So make sure you bring your questions about what you want to talk about. I'll have some topics up and we'll go from there. But until then, we will talk to you guys soon. You guys have a good one.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.